One of the most asked subscriber questions that I get all the time, Matt, how often should I call when I'm trying to locate a bull? Every 5 minutes? Every 10 minutes? Do you bugle once and then move? Do you stand there and keep calling until something answers? There isn't a timer I follow, is the basic response that I give. When I'm locating elk, I'm trying to cover country efficiently without turning every single ridge into a calling session in and of itself. I call enough to give a bull a chance to answer, and then I move. Welcome to Backbone Unlimited. My name is Matt Hartsky. I've been hunting and guiding elk for over 34 years, and locating bulls has always been one of the most important parts of my elk hunting system. If I can find a bull without him knowing exactly where I am or what I'm doing, I've already created a huge advantage. So when I'm using a bugle strictly to locate elk, I keep it pretty simple. I'm not trying to start a conversation necessarily. This is the first thing to understand. A location bugle has one job: to locate, make a bull reveal his position. I'm not trying to make him angry. I'm not trying to pull him 500 yards across a drainage. I'm not trying to convince him that I'm another dominant bull. I want him to make one sound that tells me where he's at. That's enough. Once I know where he is, I can start making hunting decisions. What's the wind doing? How far away is he? I've got the phone out. What terrain is he in? What terrain is between he and I? Is he moving? Can I get closer without calling again? That's where the hunt begins for me. Too many hunters get the first answer they wanted and immediately bugle back because it's fun, or they maybe think that they're going to call him from distance. And then the bull answers, so they bugle again. And pretty soon they've spent 10 minutes standing on the same ridge telling that bull exactly where they are, but they haven't improved their position or chances to kill that bull at all. I don't want that. If he answers my first bugle, I am stoked. I usually don't need another one. I know where he is. Now I want to move. So make sure that you give him time to answer. One mistake I see commonly in elk calling is calling too fast. A hunter bugles, nothing answers immediately. 30 seconds later, the hunter bugles again, and then maybe again. A bull doesn't always answer the second your bugle ends. He might be feeding. He might be moving through timber. He might need it to sink in for a little bit. Maybe he has cows around him. He might answer quietly with some type of sound that you don't hear from your distance. He might take a minute before even deciding to respond. So after I throw out a location bugle, I listen, and I mean really listen, not just for a screaming bull, but I'm listening for some type of distant elk sound. Could be a short response, could even just be cows talking, anything that tells me that elk are around. I also want to hear whether something answers from further away than I expected. That mountain country can make sound really difficult to judge, especially when you're dealing with drainages, timber, ridges, and wind, and just the direction that he has his head pointed. There's no reason to immediately cover up a bull's response with another bugle. That ruins it for you, and now you've given extra information. So make your sound, then shut up and listen. Now, if nothing answers after a while, I generally move. If I've given that country a fair chance and I don't hear anything, I'm probably moving. How far depends completely on the terrain. If I'm in big open ridge country where my bugle can reach a huge amount of country, I might move a long ways before calling again. And if I'm in broken timber with deep drainages or rolling terrain where sound isn't carrying nearly as well, I might call more frequently as I move through that stuff. That's why giving somebody a rule like, well, bugle every 5 minutes or 10 minutes, that doesn't make much sense. It's so variable depending upon those things. 10 minutes walking a road is different from 10 minutes climbing a steep ridge, and both are completely different from 10 minutes working through thick timber. I'm thinking about coverage, not time. How much coverage of that country am I taking care of with each bugle? What country could hear my last bugle? How much new country have I reached? When I've moved far enough that I'm exposing my call to elk that probably couldn't hear the last one, then I think it's a good idea to call again. Now, terrain determines calling frequency. This is probably the biggest variable we need to talk about. If I reach a high point where I can throw a bugle into 3 major drainages, I'm going to use that location. I'll bugle and then I listen again. Maybe change my position slightly and listen into another drainage. But I'm not going to stand there and bugle every 2 minutes from the same spot. I think that first bugle probably reached a tremendous amount of country. Now, put me down in thick timber where I've got small ridges, folds, benches, and creek bottoms blocking sound. I might absolutely call more often because every couple hundred yards can expose me to another pocket of country. The terrain tells me when another location bugle makes sense. And also, wind can change the whole plan. I'm also paying attention to that wind while I locate because here in Wyoming, we might have some calm days, but a lot of times we got wind messing with things. So sometimes I can hear a bull before I ever need to call because the wind might be carrying that bugle directly towards me. Other times, my own bugle might not carry nearly as far in the direction that I want because of the wind. And if I locate a bull, I immediately stop thinking like I'm covering country and I start thinking about how I'm going to approach him with clean wind. I usually have the phone out immediately. That transition is really important in how I'm going to get there. You were locating, now you're hunting a specific elk, and those are 2 different jobs. So I also don't want you to assume that silent country is empty. Hey, if you hunt public land elk and you're tired of grinding through random seasons, I built the elk hunting series of ebooks for you. Most hunters don't struggle because they lack effort. They struggle because they lack a system. And that's exactly why I built the elk hunting ebook series as a complete progressive framework for Western elk hunters who are done guessing and ready to hunt with intention. Volume 1 is going to be Foundations and Reality. I reset your mindset and expose the assumptions that quietly wreck seasons. In Volume 2, Finding Elk and Understanding Pressure, you'll learn how elk actually move under pressure so you can anticipate instead of react. In Volume 3, Terrain, Wind, and Position, I break down how to use landscape and thermals to consistently create opportunities. In Volume 4, Calling, Silence, and Pressure, sound becomes a decision tool, not an impulse. In Volume 5, Bow Hunting Execution, we're talking about close-range strategy so you can finish your encounters. And in Volume 6, Late Season and Post-Rut, we're talking about how elk shift after the rut and how to adapt when others quit. This is a system built for consistency. This isn't theory. It's a structured system to help you find elk, read country, and make confident decisions every season. Buy each volume individually or bundle them all to save 50% off at backboneunlimited.com. Another really important point here is that no response doesn't mean no elk, for sure, especially in pressured areas. There are going to be days when the elk are extremely vocal, but there are going to be days when they absolutely aren't. Early September, for example, can be very quiet. Pressure can shut bulls down. A bull might simply decide not to answer you. He might be stubborn or distracted with cows. So location calling is just one tool. I'm still absolutely glassing whenever possible. I'm still absolutely looking for fresh sign. I am still 100% using my knowledge of behavior and terrain, feed, bedding cover, water, and hunting pressure all to narrow down where elk should be. And if I've got fresh elk sign everywhere, but nothing is going to answer me, I'm not automatically leaving good elk country because the bugle didn't get a response. Now, I think morning and evenings can be a little bit different. How so? Well, if bulls are naturally vocal, I might hardly need a location bugle at all, right? I'm just going to use their natural talking like we all probably would. At daylight, during the rut, I'd much rather let the elk tell me where they are if possible. I'll get somewhere I can hear, I'll listen. If bulls are already bugling, there's no reason for me to add another sound. I've got the phone out, I can locate them naturally and start planning my approach without giving anything away. But if the country goes quiet and I need to find out whether there's another bull over the next ridge, that's when a location bugle becomes useful, right? And again, there's a purpose behind every call. I'm not calling because 10 minutes passed. Now, my basic approach to all this, when I'm trying to locate bulls, this is what I'm doing. I reach a position that lets my call cover new country. I bugle, I listen. If a bull answers, now I'm figuring out how to get closer. If nothing answers, I move far enough to cover another piece of country and I do it again. That could be a few hundred yards in tight terrain, or it could be a lot further in open country, like I said earlier. Sometimes I'll cover miles this way, but please understand that every bugle has a reason. You're going to call, you're going to listen, you're going to move. It's not call, 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 call. The goal is to find one bull you can hunt. And once you find him, start worrying about how close you can get without calling at all. And before we wrap this up, please know that usually my first sound is not a bugle. Typically, for me personally, I want to be less aggressive in that way when I'm trying to locate. So it's cow call, maybe then a cow call through a bugle tube, and then as a last resort or a follow-up, or if I want to reach more country, or if it's really windy, then I move to the location bugle, right? So all of those things matter for me. And I've heard folks say in response to recent videos where I'm talking about being more patient and being more reserved in that way, they kind of equate that to me being passive. And those are two very, very different words and different approaches. I am not passive out there. Now, I'm super aggressive. I just try to use patience and think through exactly what I'm doing and what strategy I'm using, and trying not to bump elk or pressure elk any more than they are here in 2026. Now, if you want to go deeper into finding elk, calling, positioning, hunting pressure, and building a truly complete September strategy, check out my elk hunting ebook series at backboneunlimited.com. Or I would love for you to join us inside Team Backbone for ongoing elk hunting education, weekly conversations, and access to my entire Backbone elk hunting community. Until next time, train harder, hunt smarter, and never settle.